we'll invite questions at the end of speaking to each artist as well. So after Caroline, we've spoken with her. So for the moment, that's going to be one to Anthonia. Antonia's work is the Eye of the Needle. It's number 45 on the wall sequence. Could you talk about the work, please, and your interest in submitting it for the open and inspiration for it?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, first of all, I saw the original picture of the portrait last year on TikTok when I was and I saw there's this book I normally read, and I saw this man making a story, telling a story about the book I've already read, so it was quite a coincidence. However, I was more intrigued by the facial expression that it made me take screenshots of different facial expressions, but I didn't know if I was going to have time to make it, paint it, so I just left it alone. Then early this year, when I was having my internal struggle and, conflict and all that, I knew it was time to paint again, because that is a way to kind of relieve myself of those, thoughts. And I came across, I had to just go back to my phone because I didn't have anyone around that could model for me. So I had to resort back to checking some of the pictures I've taken that I normally use to prep for my paintings and all that. So I came across that piece, that very one. I was like, okay, I'm going to work with this one because in a way it resonates with my internal dialogue. So for me, it was a defiance. Those thoughts or meetings I was having in my head was more about, having to be an international student, an immigrant in a country that you had so much hopes that it would kind of support you in areas that your own country couldn't really give you that sort of support. So it's like when they talk about immigration issues, hike in tuition fee, and some of the deadlines you have to meet while trying to still get what brought you to the country. For me, it was my master's, and then you have to pay up these, so many things coming up at once. So in my brain, I was like, how am I going to succeed if I have to do all these at once, because I'm all by myself here in the country. I have no family, nothing. And making this big move, coming to the UK, is actually one of the biggest things I've done, and having to think about these things made me come across that very scripture in the Bible, somewhere in Matthew, and it talks about how if a camel can go through an eye of a needle, then how they'll make the kingdom of God. So for me, it kind of resonated with what I was thinking in my head, how can I be able to do this XYZ and still be able to succeed in the art industry? How am I going to make it happen? Now this picture now became the bridge between my internal thoughts and what I need to show people. And if you look at the portrait, the man has quite a reasonable, it's not a small eyes compared to the eye of a needle, but it was an irony of what the eye of a needle is. So it made so much sense to me that I had to use that picture to represent what I was thinking. I specifically used a small scale canvas paper because I wasn't really interested in seeing that painting in a large scale. It was like an outburst for me, but I wanted to contain it in a small scale. And this is one of my smallest works. My works they range from 7 feet and above, so that is quite small for me, but I needed to kind of contain it because it's not like a joyful feeling. It's more like but a push and pull tension. And I wasn't really focused on the colors, but it turns out to be that I used more of the green and the blue and all that. But I really enjoyed it because I made it in the middle of the night. And for me, because the picture has already registered in my head, I knew I was going to paint it one day, but I didn't know when I was going to do it. So all that time that I was having it in my head, it was kind of marinating. It was just building up, just waiting for me to release it. And I had to use those colors, which I didn't know I needed to use. And in the middle of the night, I woke up one day and I sat in front of my room, a small space I created for my studio thingy. And I was able to like create that. The next day, I actually made the painting and went straight to sleep. The next day when I woke up, I kind of took a glance at that area. I was like, who is that person? So I was I was a bit impressed with myself, but I still had to go back to it to kind of touch on, when you're making paintings, sometimes you have to kind of paint it and leave it alone. It doesn't mean you're finished. Is a painting ever finished? I'm not sure about that, but for me, it felt like I needed to leave it alone. But the next day when I woke up, I was really impressed how far I went to get it to that level. But I still knew that there were areas I needed to work on, because I painted not like in the dark, but like not the daylight. So I saw some things I needed to like kind of put together to get it to this point. And yeah, when I was able to, I got that bit of satisfaction. I didn't want to go deeper. I didn't want to make it very graphic. I just needed to be very painterly, because I'm taking it from a picture and not like a live model. So I had to just sign it. But yeah, that's it. The work in summary is just a containment of my inner dialogue and questions and hopes for the future. How can I restrain myself from having to lose all hopes or give up on this chase, because it's been a long time chasing this career. So it's a way to kind of remind myself every now and then that, hey, anything is possible, just keep going. So from time to time when I'm having that bottled up feeling, I like to just kind of release them into a painting. That's a way to contain it for me. So, and that's why I didn't even know I was going to be selected because of the distance. But yeah, I just said, you know what, let me just make that move. And yeah, that's it. That's I.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's really drawn to the use of colour, but in a way that you created tone and shape. So the portrait has a real depth to it.
Yeah.
But the use of the colour draws you in a way that is very impressive to me as really try hard to paint, and just the way that you've painted with the colours to draw the people in and to give it that is really admirable.
Thank you.
And the context for the eye of the needle as well, I think, in a similar way to what Richard was talking about, like the getting yourself through the work is the thing. And sometimes it's not necessarily the outcome.
Yeah.
But I think for the portrait is something that we really wanted in the exhibition.
Yeah.
And then beforehand, I was reading, I found you worked with Nottingham Contemporary, and one of your inspirations is looking at sort of cave painting and how that has inspired different things, and looking at film.
Yeah.
And it clicked for me with this picture because it feels like somebody's also, the use of colour is like someone's in front of a fire, like it would be in a cave almost, and the way the light hits the portrait at a different level to me to look at today. Mm-hmm. So could you talk more about that influence in your work, please, if that's okay?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I remember when we had the exhibition in Nottingham Contemporary. It was actually our, how do you call that here, placement. So our art placement, MFA, and we were asked to go through a cave. We actually went to an actual cave, and that's my first time going to a cave. And I saw like all that different elements that makes up a cave. But what really interested me was I had to go back to make a bit of research and take it back to my own culture as an African, where you see lots of caves. I have never been to any cave in Nigeria anyways, but like I know there are quite a number of caves there where you see like drawings and all that. And I'm from the Igbo tribe, so we have our own distinctive writings. We call it Nsibidi. It's a sort of language, but it's no longer, it's not extinct, but it's no longer a thing now. And some of these were found on walls, cave walls. and I had to take it back to the one here in the UK in Nottingham, and I saw some of those things there, and I was a bit like, yeah, it was like a it felt like a wake up call that, hey, this kind of reminds you of home in a way. Most of my works, I make figures, human figures, and I use mostly lines. I'm actually obsessed with lines a lot. For portraitures, it's something that comes very natural to me. I like to make portraits of people because I observe people, their facial expression and all that. Now, taking you back from the cave idea and you talking about what you see, the lights that gives off that feeling like the person is in a cave or something, it's funny because the actual painting, an actual picture didn't have these colors. It was a whole just brown skin and then a bit of light, but or maybe because I made it at night, so that feeling of just being in an enclosed space, and I subconsciously chose those colors to kind of give that flicker of light, like reflected light, the highlights and all that. Again, in most of my works, you would see that I really kind of focus on highlights and the dark areas or shadow. And so that flicker of light wasn't something I had to think about. It just kind of came from within. Then again, based on the story I've said or told, my inner dialogue would almost seem or feel like a couple of people sitting in an enclosed space having a back and forth on something. So maybe that would be a sort of inspiration in a way for me to bring it out in that way, and having to select these colors. And I kind of, blue is quite prominent there as the reflected light. But maybe that could be part of what I have seen going to the cave that has kind of registered in my brain, that when it was time to now let it out, it just came naturally. So I wouldn't say it's entirely, it doesn't really have a direct link to the cave or the paintings I've made around the cave painting, but it's quite like, now that you've said it, it takes me back to all the things I saw when I was in cave, the lights, all that stuff, yeah.
And just final point. So you said that this work is one of the smallest you've made.
Yes.
So could you talk about the scale of your work then, and why that would be important to you, like having 7 feet canvases and stuff?
Trying things to say about small people, but I think I'm trying to compensate for my smallness. So, like, if I'm so small that you can't really see me, you are definitely gonna see my works. So how about I'm making me large scale? That's really it's a way to kind of put everything out there that nothing is hidden. So yeah, that's just the reason. Yeah.
Thank you.